have a 2012 Audi A8L. Yes, this is the limousine model with the extended length. Now, it came to us with several problems. First, the battery was completely discharged, and the reason why is the vehicle had to be towed, and the tow truck driver obviously used the emergency release, which is under a trap door under the driver's mat. And what that is a cable that goes down to the automatic transmission and mechanically unlatches the parking pole to allow the vehicle to be towed. Now, if you leave that in the unlatched position and then actually start and move the car, what happens is that it gives you a warning that the transmission is not in park and won't completely shut down. So obviously, if you leave it like that, it discharges the battery. So after resetting the emergency parking pole release, and of course after installing a new battery, which it needed, that battery was several years old, then the next problem was our MMI display was actually stuck in the down position. In other words, when we would request it to come up or turn on the ignition key, nothing would happen. And voila, what was wrong? There was actually an object that was stuck. Well, after removing the plastic lizard, we also noticed that the power wires coming up to the MMI display actually had broken. And why do they break? Well, this thing keeps getting flexed. That wiring harness keeps getting flexed as it's retracted and extended. Now, it's doing that at my request with this button, but every time I cycle the key, it will retract. And one other problem you have to watch out for too, on this model, there's only two connections to this MMI display. There's actually obviously vehicle power and the video cable. It's coming from the multimedia control unit right here, and that keeps getting flexed up and down, and that's not something so easy to repair, but it seems to be okay. On this particular model, I have a DVD CD player changer there in the glove box. Now, on this particular model, like many luxury European cars, these devices are connected together in a fiber optic ring called MOST. And the amplifier and some of the other units are actually located back in the trunk. Okay, here we see the Bose amplifier, and there we see the fiber optic ring. And as we move around, we see various components. Obviously, here I see these high-frequency connectors here for antenna. And as we move over, here's that MOST connector again. Here we see another module. There we see the different modules. One of these is going to be for the suspension system. Various modules. And here we see relays and, of course, our fuse network there in back. Also with this vehicle, the right front airbag, the suspension strut, the airbag strut, was leaking. So what would happen is it would just go down. Overnight, the car would, of course, lean solidly there to the right. And when it went to pump it up, apparently it worked properly for a while, but then as we got it, the leak was so severe that as the system would try and raise the vehicle to the normal height, the pump would go through a timeout. Yes, there's an air pump that's actually in a compartment underneath the trunk. It's accessed from underneath the vehicle. After it runs for so many minutes, it times out and it knows that there's something wrong, and of course alerts us there on the dash and sets a corresponding fault code. Now, we've replaced that strut, and that was the only one that was leaking, and that's a very common problem on the Audi. Very common. I'm sure those struts are replaced probably a couple of times in the life of a vehicle. Probably 100,000 miles is its life, and this one's coming in at 137,231 miles. Now, one thing that's nice about this is that we do have a desired ride height, as I can actually raise the vehicle. And there, if it's kind of hard to tell sitting in the vehicle, but if we were out there looking at it, you'd see that the vehicle is indeed rising up on all four wheels. And the idea is to give larger amount of ground clearance. I'm driving in snow or on a rough terrain, and I need some more ground clearance. Now, the only thing about this, though, is that it will raise the vehicle and will stay raised until I go above a certain speed. And then what will happen is it will lower, and that speed's about 60-70 miles an hour, and then the vehicle will lower back down to its normal height. So here I'm in the raised position. Now, with these style struts, they have the dynamic shock absorbers, so I can actually program different feels there for the vehicle. So comfort probably would be what I would desire right there. We do have auto, and we'll let it go ahead and operate in the automatic mode. Now we're ready for our road test. This has the normally aspirated 4.2 liter V8 engine, and this is actually the ZF8 HP automatic transmission, and of course in Audi fashion, this is the Audi Quattro, so it's all-wheel drive, and it has a rather elaborate mechanical transfer case that's integral with the transmission that actually splits the drive torque between the front and the rear axle. Now, Audi Quattro was developed many years ago, before the advent of some of the later advanced anti-lock brake systems. For instance, on Mercedes, the 4MATIC, and on BMW's all-wheel drive system, they depend, or they call it X-Drive, they actually depend on the anti-lock brake system to apply the brake on a wheel that's slipping, and that's their form of advanced traction control. Now, obviously the Audi system can do the same thing, but I also have the mechanical Quattro system that splits the torque between the front and the rear wheels, and as it senses obviously slippage there on a front or rear wheel, and what it does is it can touch the brake and transfer that torque to the wheels that aren't spinning or have traction. Now, obviously the Audi A8 is the flagship of Volkswagen, and certainly this is a very luxurious car, very comfortable, very elaborate interior. It's quiet and smooth, very respectable as far as power is concerned.